Love music, live sport. Pole Position with Andy Alston and Adam Todd on Rock Sport Radio.
Hello and welcome to Pole Position, the motorsport show here on Rock Sport Radio. It's Andy Alston with you alongside Adam Todd, broadcasting on DAB digital radio across central Scotland, online and on TuneIn. And on the show this week, Hamilton wins as Vettel spins, Van Doorn out the door as McLaren look for more, MotoGP is back again as long as there isn't any rain, and Rally without a plan after no event in the Isle of Man. All this and more on Pole Position. Now, Lewis Hamilton extended his championship lead to 30 points after the Mercedes driver won the Italian Grand Prix last weekend. Ferrari's Kimi Raikkonen finished second in the race, with Hamilton's teammate Valtteri Bottas taking the final step on the podium. And Adam, what a win that was for Hamilton, arguably one of his best of his career so far, and for Mercedes as well, especially after Ferrari started 1-2 on the grid.
Well, what a huge result that could be in terms of the championship for Lewis Hamilton and Mercedes. And firstly, what an amazing qualifying session we had on Saturday. So exciting, with Sebastian Vettel, Kimi Raikkonen and Lewis Hamilton all three in the mix, and it was Raikkonen who prevailed. But you're thinking, with Ferrari 1 and 2 at the start, you're thinking it's going to be a perfect afternoon. They're going to end their 8-year drought at Monza, and it'll be a 1-2 to Ferrari, and a historic 1-2 at that. But it didn't play out like that, because obviously Sebastian Vettel, Lewis Hamilton making contact early on. Valtteri Bottas did a terrific job being Hamilton's teammate, which gave Hamilton the best opportunity to pass Raikkonen, and then Lewis Hamilton was able to overtake Kimi Raikkonen from there on in. Didn't look back, so it was a very, very good result for Lewis Hamilton, and what a place to do it, and what a message that sends out to Ferrari as well, the fact that Mercedes won the Italian Grand Prix on Ferrari's home turf.
And Adam, the big talking point among Ferrari fans after the race was Sebastian Vettel's contact with Lewis Hamilton on the opening lap. Just talk us through what happened there.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, Kimi Raikkonen starting on at pole position, Sebastian Vettel second, and you know, Ferrari would have been delighted that they'd secured the front row at their home race, the Italian Grand Prix, but at the same time they must have been thinking that creates slight issues, because that means Lewis Hamilton's closer to Sebastian Vettel. And Raikkonen made a decent start, as did Vettel and Hamilton. Raikkonen actually locked up going into the first corner, but Sebastian Vettel couldn't get past him, so then it was the Ferrari 1-2. Lewis Hamilton was sitting in behind third, and then as they went through the next few corners, you had Sebastian Vettel still trying to get ahead of his teammate Kimi Raikkonen, but as he was doing that, Lewis Hamilton was eyeing up an overtake over Lewis Hamilton was eyeing up overtaking Sebastian Vettel, and they ended up making contact. Vettel came off worse. He was facing the wrong way round, and that sent him to plumb last in the Grand Prix. He had to work his way back right up from last, and he eventually finished fourth in the Grand Prix. A good comeback drive, you could argue, but at the same time he shouldn't have had to have made that comeback drive. So another incident involving Sebastian Vettel, more costly points lost for him in terms of the championship.
So was it a racing incident, Adam? Because there weren't a lot of Ferrari fans on social media during and after the race calling for a penalty there on Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah, a lot of people were saying that 9 times out of 10 it would have been Lewis Hamilton's car that would have been worse off in that situation. He would have been facing the wrong way, but in that particular day on Sunday it was Sebastian Vettel who came off worse, and I think it was a racing incident definitely, but again it's Sebastian Vettel who came off worse. He's had numerous incidents this season, and they're all adding up at the moment. Okay, came back to finish fourth, but that's useless when his main title contender Lewis Hamilton's winning the race, when it should have been Sebastian Vettel's victory.
So do you think these incidents, Adam, are going to cost Sebastian Vettel the championship this season?
Almost 100% I can see it now. That mistake in Germany when he was leading the race in front of his home fans, it's quite ironic, isn't it? The two races that he'd probably most like to win, his home race in Hockenheim in Germany, crashes out, loses 25 points, and then at Ferrari's home race in Italy also makes a mistake. So effectively his 2 home races he's made mistakes in, and that Germany where he lost those 25 points that he would have got for the win, Lewis Hamilton would have had 7 points less in the championship because he would have finished second at best, and it's a 30-point advantage Lewis Hamilton has at the moment, so it would be a 32-point swing, which would mean Vettel would be leading by 2 points. So 30 points with just 7 races to go. It's going to be extremely tough for Sebastian Vettel, and he's going to have to pull something out the bag. The good thing for Ferrari is I still believe they have the faster package, the faster car, which will make it interesting, but they have to start winning quickly.
So Ferrari have got the fastest car on the grid, in your opinion. Why couldn't Kimi Raikkonen hold on and claim all 25 points and take that win last weekend?
Well, I have to say, what an amazing display of team tactics from Mercedes, keeping Valtteri Bottas out there for a long period of time. I felt that really worked out well. He pitted in lap 36, Kimi Raikkonen 14 laps earlier. So Raikkonen eventually caught up with Bottas, but Bottas held up Kimi Raikkonen to allow Lewis Hamilton to close in on Raikkonen, because Hamilton pitted later, a few laps later than Kimi Raikkonen. I think it was 8 laps in lap 28 compared to Raikkonen's lap 20. So Raikkonen had came out ahead. The undercut effectively while Raikkonen was already leading, so Ferrari had actually extended that advantage, but by keeping Bottas out until lap 36, that meant Raikkonen was getting held up by the Mercedes driver, allowed Lewis Hamilton to close in. So I think that was a big reason, because it was 2 versus 1. And the other reason, I just don't think Kimi Raikkonen's been fast enough in races this season. I think he's shown at times he's been quick, but overall I just don't think he's done enough a good enough job. And I think you go back to last season, again it was Vettel versus Hamilton. You look at the job Valtteri Bottas did when Lewis Hamilton was off the boil. Russia, who finished second? Sebastian Vettel. Who finished first? Valtteri Bottas. The same scenario in the Austrian Grand Prix. Sebastian Vettel was chasing Valtteri Bottas, but Valtteri Bottas won that day. And Sunday was a prime example of where you needed Kimi Raikkonen to deliver to help Sebastian Vettel win the championship, and he couldn't do it. So when Ferrari needed Raikkonen most, unfortunately for me, he didn't deliver. But again, he was up against it because of the Vettel, the racing incident at the start just meant Mercedes, it was 2 versus 1, and they did very well. Team tactics, you have to applaud Mercedes for that.
Now, another talking point in the race last weekend was Max Verstappen's incident with Mercedes driver Valtteri Bottas, which saw the Dutchman handed a 5-second penalty. Now, Verstappen certainly wasn't happy with the decision, but Adam, what's your opinion on the incident?
Yeah, I agree with the decision that Max Verstappen got the penalty, and it was just a bit reckless, wasn't it? Going down into the first corner, Verstappen, he had the inside line anyway, but then he just moved to the left and really gave Valtteri Bottas no room. And I don't understand the point of it, because Verstappen still would have had the corner because he was on the inside. And it was reckless. It was reckless in my opinion. He was trying to keep Valtteri Bottas behind, and he cost himself a few positions, because then that obviously allowed Sebastian Vettel to overtake him because of that penalty. So he's cost not only himself points, but his team points as well.
But he's just got to stop moving in the braking zone then, Adam. It's as simple as that. I'm sorry, because you don't see the likes of Vettel or Hamilton, Fernando Alonso to some extent, making overtaking manoeuvres like that, where he is almost inviting the other driver to have an accident. There was, you mentioned it there. Both cars are parallel going into the first corner. Why does he feel the need to really squeeze Bottas beyond the track limits, of course, going into there as well at very high speed? It just seems totally unnecessary, and it's incidents like this that are going to hold Verstappen back as a driver. We all know he's very quick, we all know the potential he has, and if Red Bull can deliver him a car that's capable of fighting for a championship, he'll certainly be up there. But I have my doubts as to whether he would actually be able to win a title in Formula 1 at the minute, if that's the sort of racecraft that he's got under his belt, because it's going to come back and bite him time and time and time again.
And I also think his response to the team was telling, where he was saying, I know we're vulnerable to Sebastian Vettel, but I don't care. That's not the way it operates in Formula 1. It's a team sport at the end of the day, so I thought that was a bit naive. I mean, we forget Verstappen, he's only 20 years old, isn't he? But what a start he had to the season, where he had those 6 incidents in 6 races. There was huge pressure on Max Verstappen, but since then he's had a few good results, the best of which obviously that victory at Red Bull's home race in Austria. But again, after a relatively quiet patch, he was going about his business well. You just get that one instant of Max Verstappen that, I don't want to use the word immaturity, but I suppose it's more racing experience, you would say.
It's lacking composure, Adam. It's lacking composure under pressure.
I mean, and I say it's lacking experience, but at the same time, he's been in Formula 1 since 2015 now, hasn't he? He's raced a lot of races, and if he was fighting for the World Championship, would his mindset maybe change? Because his mindset at the moment, to me, suggests it's all out attack 100%, and it is, he wants to finish as high as possible every single race, which is great in one sense, but you're then risking, having these crashes, having these incidents, making contact with Valtteri Bottas at the weekend, whereas to win a championship it's all about consistency and finishing races, because who's to say with that contact he wouldn't have picked up damage to his front wing or to bodywork, and that could have cost him, all 10 points that he eventually finished for 5th place. So he's just got to watch, because undoubtedly he is one of the stars of the future, probably one of the most exciting. Him and Charles Leclerc, they're going to have some great battles hopefully in the upcoming years, but if he is going to win World Championships, he just needs to cut that bit out of his racing, that's for sure.
Now, Romain Grosjean looked like he had finished best of the rest in 6th place for Haas, but then, Adam, it all seemed to go rather wrong after the race. Just explain to us what happened.
Yep, interesting story here. So basically, as you mentioned, Romain Grosjean, it was a good 6th result, and he's been under massive pressure. It was 8 races before he scored his first points of the season, but all of a sudden he's turned around his season, and he was then on to about 35 points for the season. It was going well. His teammate Kevin Magnussen was in 49, so all of a sudden the gap between Magnussen and Grosjean wasn't as big as it was, and Grosjean's a man under pressure in terms of keeping his race seat, so really disappointing result for him, the fact he's not been able to hold on to those points. But yes, he was disqualified because the floor of his Haas car was deemed to be illegal, and the interesting point was it was Renault who lodged the protest after Sunday's race. And it's fascinating as well, because had those points been given, Haas would have been in 4th place in the championship with the same amount of points as Renault as well. So very interesting, I have to say. Haas were saying it was a bit bizarre, all of it happened, but they were concerned by a small detail on the leading edge of the floor on Grosjean's car. Both teams, as always with these stewards' inquiry, summoned to see the stewards and the FIA's technical delegate examine Grosjean's car in Parc Fermé, and after a lengthy investigation, ultimately the plaintiff Romain Grosjean was found not to be in compliance with the regulations. So it's an interesting one. It's a really interesting one, because a technical directive had been sent out to all the teams in July the 25th ahead of the Hungarian Grand Prix, and I had actually heard that Renault had been made aware of something to do with the Haas car earlier on in the season. But if you think about it, why would Renault want to do it if Romain Grosjean finished 10th, for example, and both Renaults finished 6th and 7th? Because then it doesn't affect Renault. But the fact Grosjean had finished 6th, really high up, Carlos Sainz Jr. finished provisionally 9th before moving up to 8th after the race. So it's an interesting one. We know a lot of teams haven't been happy with Haas in general. A lot of people saying it's effectively a Ferrari B team. So, but again, it was the floor of Romain Grosjean deemed to be illegal, and Haas lose crucial championship points.
They're so Toro Rosso, aren't they? Do you know what I mean? They can have this opinion of Haas. Now, I would kind of take the stance of, we had so many new teams come into the sport a good few years ago, none of which are still here. Haas have come in, yes, there's a good bit of money behind that team, and yes, a significant portion of the car is made up of Ferrari components. But I dare say work smarter, not harder, Adam.
Yeah, you've got a fair point. I mean, if you're going to come into Formula 1, I think everybody would look at the Haas model and say what a success story that's been. Haas could easily be in 4th place in terms of the Constructors' Championship at the moment. I mean, Australia, what heartbreak that was for the team. Those 2 pit stop errors, I think they're running 4th and 5th at the time in the season opening race, would have had massive points. So yep, for anybody new coming into Formula 1, they'll be looking at the way Haas have done it, the model they've done it, because they've been very successful. And you don't want to come into the sport and be like HRT, Caterham and Manor, who were all out the sport after numerous years. No disrespect to them, they were promised that cost cap, never came into effect or anything. So the Haas way is the way of working, because that's the only new team that's came into Formula 1 in the past decade or so that's survived.
Yeah, now, Racing Point Force India did well to finish 6th and 7th. Carlos Sainz Jr. classified as 8th, Lance Stroll going up to 9th, and Sergei Sorokin, as a result of Romain Grosjean being disqualified, finally got his first point in Formula 1 with a 10th place finish. And Adam, good to see both Williams drivers in the points as well, because it has been an extremely tough season for that team.
Yeah, definitely, and good for Sorokin as well, because he's the only driver without any points. Obviously that's now changed. There's a lot of repercussions with that Grosjean move, with that Grosjean disqualification. You mentioned there both Williams in the points, and that that now meant Renault now go back ahead of Haas and Force India, you mentioned there, with terrific result again for them, you have to say. 6 and 7 for Ocon and Perez. They're now ahead of Toro Rosso already. 32 points they're on after just 2 races. Is that not incredible?
Yeah, definitely.
Is that not just...
Yeah, credit where it's due there.
Absolutely, terrific. But yeah, delighted for Sorokin, because from what you hear in the paddock, he's a very hard worker. He's done well this season, but again, it's all about people just look at the points a lot of the time in Formula 1. So for Sorokin, it's been a very difficult year for him, and Lance Stroll 9, so a good day for Williams.
And just finally, Adam, a quick word for Sauber's Marcus Ericsson, because he had a huge crash during practice on Friday after a DRS failure. He was going down the start-finish straight, tried to brake, the DRS flap didn't go back down, car veered very, very quickly off to the left. A spectacular crash with the Sauber car rolling multiple times in the air, but he managed to thankfully walk away unscathed. Took part in the race and finished in 15th place as well. And Adam, again, it just had a big incident last time out in Spa, another one at Monza, and it just underlines the improvements in safety that have been made over the years in Formula 1.
100%. The car just kind of acts as safety cell now, and the fact all 4 tyres were still intact as well, because as soon as one of them comes off, it can be very dangerous. They can bounce anywhere on the track, or even worse, into areas where the fans are. But yeah, safety improvements massive in Formula 1. I have to say that Marcus Ericsson crash is one of the worst crashes I've saw in Formula 1 in recent years. It was just incredible. The more times you watched it, just unbelievable. The fact he's able to walk out is just testament to the numerous safety improvements that have been made to the sport. So fantastic to see him able to race on this Sunday, and likewise obviously to see Fernando Alonso and Charles Leclerc all back racing as well this weekend after that horror incident in Belgium. But yeah, just as you say, underlines the massive safety strides that have been taken.
Alright, and stay with us as we talk all things McLaren up next on Rock Sport Radio.
Love music, live sport. Pole Position with Andy Alston and Adam Todd on Rock Sport Radio.
Now, McLaren have announced that they will be parting ways with Stoffel van Dorn at the end of the year. But less than an hour after that announcement, they confirmed the 18-year-old Lando Norris will take his seat for 2019. Norris is delighted with that new role that he has, but he knows that it's a big deal.
It means the world. I mean, it's my dream from karting when I was young. To be with McLaren and one day be a F1 world champion. That's the dream, but this is a big step in that direction, and therefore I've got to thank McLaren for giving me this opportunity, and I can't wait to start in 2019.
And he wants to help McLaren return to their glory days.
We got a long journey to go, I think, to get to the top again. I'm still driving in Formula 1. I'm with McLaren, so I still value this opportunity a lot, and I want to return to winning. So whatever I can do to help get them there, I'll do, because at the moment then I can win championships and races as well. So it's going to be a long journey and tough, but I really do look forward to it.
Do you think this is the right decision, Adam?
Yes, I suppose it is for McLaren. I mean, he's unproven in Formula 1, but from his junior category pedigree, it looks as if he's going to be a driver of the future. So I think for McLaren, why not have a rookie in, if you like. I just feel for McLaren, reading the press release, Zach Brown saying how it's a rebuilding job. For me, it's just disappointing to see McLaren. They're not going to be making much progress over the next years. So, yeah, I think it's a relatively strong pairing with Lando Norris and Carlos Sainz Jr. And for Norris, it's obviously delighted for him to finally get an opportunity in Formula 1. He's had a relatively quick rise as well, just 18 years old, and there's a lot of drivers out there at the moment. There's the big chat about how we're missing drivers, aren't getting enough opportunity because there's a lack of race seats in Formula 1. So good to see as well for British motorsport as well to have another Brit on the grid, because we've been short of them recently, just obviously the one with Lewis Hamilton. So to have another one's on great. And for Lando Norris, I suppose you could argue, well, it's not the ideal time to join McLaren. At the same time, for him it could be perfect in the sense it is a rebuilding job. He's young, he's not going to be fighting at the front unless they can produce a miracle. So he has time to kind of learn his racecraft in Formula 1, which I think may help him in the future.
Now, Adam, just tell us a little bit more about Norris and what he's achieved in the junior categories, because you see he's very highly rated. So what has he been up to?
Yeah, well, he's currently in Formula 2 and currently sitting second in that championship, so it's an interesting battle between two Brits, Lando Norris, George Russell, other drivers involved in that as well. But he's also won numerous other single-seater events, and he won the F3 Championship, which actually in 2017 I think it was, he won the European Formula 3 Championship, and by winning that actually means he won every single-seater championship he's contested in full. So pretty big boots to fill there, and obviously he'll be hoping to do the same in Formula 2. We've still got a few races left in that season, but yeah, he's been doing the usual in terms of drivers, racing in the likes of Formula Renault, karting as well, and his racing record really began in 2010, so he would have just been 10 years old at that point, so very young indeed. And 8 years on, the McLaren and Test reserve driver this year, and now he's going to be stepping up to the full race seat next season.
Now, Toro Rosso approached McLaren early in the year to try and effectively loan Norris for their team, but they were of course turned away. So do you think that McLaren were perhaps under pressure to promote Norris to a race seat for next season because they could have potentially risk losing him from their system altogether?
Yeah, and they certainly won't want to lose an up-and-coming talent like Lando Norris. McLaren know they need kind of everything to be in their side if they're going to have any chance of making any progress in the next few seasons before the big new regulations come in. Zach Brown's been very clear it's a rebuilding process. The last thing McLaren want to do is lose the talent they've kind of helped to nurture in the lower categories in that relationship with Lando Norris. If he goes to Toro Rosso, then there is the risk that they'll lose him. So it was a difficult situation for McLaren, I think, because obviously they had Stoffel Van Dorn as well. I mean, do they stick by him? You could argue his results haven't been great, but the machinery he's been given hasn't been good enough either for him. Or do you go with Lando Norris? But it's a very young pairing, and as I said, I think it could be the right time in the sense they are young, or certainly Lando Norris is. And you know, we've talked about Max Verstappen earlier on the show and how perhaps he came into the sport too soon, you could argue, whereas and especially at the front of the sport, Toro Rosso, and then he was shipped into Red Bull after just one season and a couple of races, whereas I think for Lando Norris he can really get a good base at McLaren and he can learn a lot as well. And who knows, in a few years if he's still with McLaren, they could be competing for podiums, race wins.
The thing that interests me about this story, Adam, is if we rewind 3 or 4 years, a lot of this narrative that we currently have around Lando Norris was surrounding Stoffel Van Dorn. It was Van Dorn, he's the next big driver, he's the next big thing. McLaren are going to build this team around him. Then he comes into the team, and it doesn't really quite happen. And I've said on this show before as well that part of being a good driver is being able to be in the right seat at the right time. You know, there's so many guys that we've had over the years in Formula 1 that we can say he should have won a world championship, should have won a few races, he should have moved there. It never quite happened. So is this the end for Van Dorn's career? Could he perhaps reinvent himself somewhere down the line? You know, for me, Kevin Magnussen springs to mind because he was at McLaren, ditched, spent a year out, then comes back and does relatively well at Haas. Because, you know, McLaren, you could argue, have had a lot of young talent in recent years. You know, Sergio Perez in there as well as another driver. So what do you think is round the corner for Van Dorn? Does he still have a future in Formula 1? I
would like to think so. His junior category record is very strong as well, just like Lando Norris and Charles Leclerc as well. And there was a lot of talk. I mean, we've talked about Charles Leclerc and how he's being built up to be a future star in Formula 1. I've talked about that many a times on the show, and it was the same with Stoffel Van Dorn, as you mentioned there. And you mentioned Sergio Perez and Kevin Magnussen, and I think that's key. You look at the drivers that McLaren have had in recent years, and I think Kevin Magnussen is doing a sublime job, terrific job at Haas at the moment. But you're right, he had to sit out in 2015, and he was lucky to reinvent his career and get another chance in 2016, because that after Lotus and bought over Renault, that seat was Pastor Maldonado's. That seat, it was going to be Maldonado and Julian Palmer, but then Maldonado's oil funding, you know, that never came to fruition, so Kevin Magnussen then got that seat. But had that not happened, you know, Magnussen's career in Formula 1 probably would be over. Sergio Perez, now I think McLaren, the way they handled that situation back in 2013 was shocking, how long they left it for Sergio Perez, because it was about November at the US Grand Prix, I think it was, when they finally made that decision that Sergio, you're not getting kept on for the next season. And you know, driver contracts, they're sorted around about this time, aren't they? I mean, and we're seeing that. So to have done it that late, left Perez short of options, he got that seat with Force India. Look how well he's done in recent years as well. He's outperformed Nico Hülkenberg in their 3 years at Force India, and now he's up against Esteban Ocon and doing a decent job getting the odd podium as well. So it's going to be extremely tough for Stoffel Van Dorn. It is not easy when you lose a team to find another seat. It can also be demoralising. I mean, Zak Brown admitted in his statement on Monday, he was saying it was clear they haven't provided Stoffel with the tools to show his true talent, but throughout their relationship he's proved to be a fantastic team player. And I think Zak Brown, he said in comments that if he was in charge of Toro Rosso he would take Stoffel Van Dorn. Now those comments have come in for a bit of criticism, as you can imagine.
What a nice thing to say, do you know what I mean? But you're out the door. But if I was in another team, I would tell you thanks very much.
Yeah, but it comes back to your earlier point that McLaren couldn't take the risk of really Lando Norris going to Toro Rosso, so perhaps Stoffel Van Dorn, they've looked at his performances against Fernando Alonso, which haven't actually been as bad as the points difference make out. This is a problem because Alonso outperforms Machinery so much, and he'll manage to get the 7th, 8th place he finishes. If Van Dorn's only a couple of seconds down the road, he's outside the points, and because he's hardly scoring any points, that's the difference. It's getting shown a lot more than what it would be if that was a front winning McLaren and Van Dorn was maybe finishing 3rd and 4th and Alonso was winning. So that's kind of been a big problem as well that Van Dorn's had. But as I mentioned, he's got a very strong record in Formula 1. It'd be a real shame if he didn't. Personally, I'd like him to get another shot. Toro Rosso's probably his best bet. Sauber had ruled him out, but you never know. So it's a shame. It's never nice to see a driver lose his seat, and especially when you feel he's not been given an opportunity to showcase his skills and talents, because he had that race in Bahrain back in 2016, scored McLaren's first points of the season, and you were thinking this could be the start of something special. It's not worked out. Real shame.
Okay, there's another team, of course, on the grid that's been linked with lots of driver speculation. That is, of course, Ferrari. Charles Leclerc heavily rumoured to make a move to Maranello for 2019. Kimi Räikkönen, of course, in the frame to try and retain his seat as well. Adam, I'm just going to cut straight to the point on this one. Who would you have alongside Sebastian Vettel at Ferrari next season?
For me, I would go with Charles Leclerc. He's the future of the sport, and I think that's what Ferrari need to do. Historically they've always not taken the easy option, but they always kind of go for experience. But I think now is the opportunity for Ferrari to really make a bold statement. My issue with Ferrari in recent years has been they've gone with number ones and numbers twos, and the big thing in Formula 1, as much as we love the Drivers' Championship and that's where all the stories are, it's the Constructors' Championship for the teams and the prize money that comes with that actually is the big one to all the teams, and that's the championship that matters. And I feel with Ferrari's current system of having a number one driver and a number two driver, in recent years we've saw Alonso, Massa and now Vettel and Raikkonen. My issue is they're not going to win a Constructors' Championship unless they have two drivers who are a lot more evenly matched. And I just feel if they had Charles Leclerc there and Sebastian Vettel, that would put a lot more pressure on the Valtteri Bottas and Lewis Hamilton partnership.
But Adam, that's not the Ferrari way, though. I mean, when was the last time Ferrari had two reasonably evenly matched drivers? I mean, you could go back to 93. Jean Alesi, Gerhard Berger in there. Alesi was a young up and coming driver at that point. Berger was a very experienced guy, but Ferrari, that is the way that they've always been. It's clear number one, clear number two, and I'm not saying that's right or wrong. You could say Villeneuve and Pironi, even two reasonably evenly matched drivers at that point as well, and that's you going back to the 80s. But Adam, the thing with me, the concern I have with Ferrari taking Charles Leclerc is the fact that come 2019 he's going to be 21. It'll be his second full season in Formula 1. That's a massive risk no matter what team you go to if you're going to one of the front runners. It's a lot of pressure on young shoulders, and people might say, what about Max Verstappen? He came in, he did it no problem, but I'm sorry, but driving for Ferrari is a very different type of pressure.
Yeah, good point. Ferrari is obviously an institution in Formula 1 terms, and we've had the discussion on the show before about is Formula 1 Ferrari, is Ferrari Formula 1, and all these discussions. And you're right, going to Ferrari for Charles Leclerc, you mentioned Max Verstappen, he's not currently in a championship winning car, whereas Leclerc probably would be next season. And however, I disagree with the point about how it's massive pressure and a massive risk, in the sense, Leclerc's not really got nothing anything to lose there, is it? It's not as if Kimi Raikkonen's going out there and winning races. You know,
but
if Leclerc, if he goes into the team and he wins, then fantastic, right? But if Charles, though, but if he doesn't win races and he perhaps struggles in the few races, and that's fine, because you've got Sebastian Vettel as a number one, and sooner or later Charles Leclerc, I believe, will come good in the Ferrari. So I feel it's the right way for Ferrari to do it. Another point is Sebastian Vettel actually delivering for Ferrari at the moment? Is he about to throw away a championship? Do they actually need a championship contender in that team? Is Vettel throwing it away for Ferrari? Bring in Leclerc, who knows? Look, he could be a Ferrari world champion.
You can record this one and play it back in various years to come. Sebastian Vettel will be at Ferrari for the end of his career, guaranteed. He will be. No chance will he move on. You know, he is absolutely determined to win the Drivers' Championship with Ferrari. So Ferrari have quite clearly built that team around him. Look at the trajectory of Leclerc's career compared to Raikkonen. Leclerc's on the up. If he goes to Ferrari, he's expected to go and win races. Raikkonen's not expected to win races at the minute with Ferrari. He's expected to support Vettel. So if you move towards Leclerc and Vettel, that could massively upset the balance of that team behind the scenes, because think back to the last time Vettel had a driver that could match him in terms of raw pace. It was Daniel Ricciardo at Red Bull. Didn't work out very well for him at that point, and yeah, you could argue that they had a bit of misfortune along the way in that season, but it really unsettled Vettel. He couldn't handle it for whatever reason, and if they bring in a guy like Charles Leclerc, who's young and hungry, he doesn't want to play second fiddle to Vettel. He wants to go and be the main man at Ferrari. So can that team that's going through a massive period of transition as well in terms of their kind of corporate structure, can they handle that sort of situation on a race by race basis?
I think Charles Leclerc would be quite happy to go in for a season and learn his craft and quite happily play the number 2 figure. I really do believe that. I think he would be happy. You know, as you mentioned, he's a very young talent in Formula 1. He's got years ahead of him, but I do feel this season Sebastian Vettel, he's had numerous incidents, we've talked about them, and he's in danger of throwing away a world championship. So I just feel for Ferrari, bring in Charles Leclerc as a win-win, because if he delivers and you've got 2 drivers that could fight for the championship, and you're almost going to guarantee yourself winning the Constructors' Championship, and you know, can he do much worse than Kimi Raikkonen? No disrespect to Raikkonen, but Raikkonen's not winning races.
Yeah, but he's not exactly off the pace either, Adam. You know, he qualified on
but he's in the fastest car.
Right, but he's not expected to win races. He's expected to come in there.
I think he should be. I really do. See the Italian Grand Prix, he's got to win that race on Sunday for me, 100%. His teammate is at the back. Okay, you can argue maybe through his own fault. That then mean, as your Vettel's teammate, you're expected to do the job. You know, you look at the job, how well Valtteri Bottas kind of played that figure. Whereas Kimi Raikkonen, for me, I just felt, okay, he was up against it, the 2 versus 1, but that's the kind of race Kimi Raikkonen has to win to help his teammate Sebastian Vettel, and he didn't deliver.
Yeah, look, I mean, I take your point, but again, look back to the way Ferrari signed drivers over the years. You know, the last time they took in a driver who was, I mean, and I'm not saying Leclerc's a very talented driver, but he's not the finished article. He's not the same driver at 2021 as he will be at 30-31. He'll be a better driver by that point, guaranteed. When Ferrari took on Felipe Massa for 2006, there was a lot of raised eyebrows in the paddock at that point. You know, people were saying, what is this all about? Rubens Barrichello, prior to that, he was brought in to be number 2 driver, and he'll say that he wasn't happy with that, but he knew what he was doing when he was signing that contract to join the team in 2000. It's all about that tiered system. That's the way they work. I
don't think Kimi Raikkonen, he's a world champion. He's the last driver to win a world championship with Ferrari. Are you honestly telling me that he's quite happy not to win races?
I think he's quite happy to be at Ferrari, Adam, to be honest with you. I think he'd rather be at Ferrari than Sauber or all these other teams. I think, again, he's at a different stage of his career. He's already won that championship. There's a lot of people that say he kind of lost a bit of motivation. He lost a couple of tenths, you could argue, when he won that championship. And the way that remember the way he left Ferrari? Gone on and won that championship, had an absolute nightmare of a season and was promptly paid off to leave. When Raikkonen was announced to return to the team, that was a major shock back in 2014. So I think he's quite happy just to be there, see out the final years of his career. He knows that it's all about Vettel. That's the way they're going to set up. But if Ferrari decide to go Leclerc and Vettel for 2019 and beyond, I think it could massively unsettle him. Why not have Charles Leclerc go to Haas for one season, just one season, to just get a bit more experience on his belt. Let's see him try and lead a team. If he wants to win races with Ferrari, let's see him try and lead a team, because he hasn't really done that at the minute. It would be great as well in the world to Marcus Ericsson. He's a decent driver, but he's not going to be winning championships or winning races if we're being transparent. Let's see him try and build a team, because Vettel can do that. He can build a team around him. Charles Leclerc, we haven't seen that so far.
Yeah, well, we can't expect that in his first season of the sport, I don't think. But, I think for Ferrari, it's time to, go against the previous trends that they've done. Bring in Charles Leclerc alongside Sebastian Vettel. I mean, how strong a pairing is that? How strong a pairing would that be? As I said, I feel they're neglecting the Constructors' Championship because they've got those kind of two-tier drivers. And for Mercedes, we talked about Valtteri Bottas, how he had been under pressure at the start of the year. Could he deliver? And he's done an okay job. But, you look at Mercedes with Hamilton and Rosberg, and you just think if they had kept with Hamilton and Rosberg, very difficult to manage.
You could argue that was carnage.
Yes. But at the end of the day, it produced multiple world championships, and it was a very successful partnership.
Right.
So I think Sebastian Vettel at the moment and Kimi Räikkönen, I don't think the pairing's as happy as what it's led to believe. These two are the great pals off the track, they play badminton with each other. I don't think they are as happy with each other. I feel Sebastian Vettel, he's made a couple of points after that race about Kimi Räikkönen's kind of driving, and I mentioned Kimi Räikkönen was pretty aggressive, and also Vettel was critical of Ferrari on Saturday after the qualifying. He came on the team radio, didn't he, and he made comments. So I do not think that it's Kimi Räikkönen is playing a particularly good team role. I think Vettel actually even made the comment that he's racing 3 cars, including his teammate, whereas could you argue Lewis Hamilton's racing his teammate? No, he isn't. So I think Valtteri Bottas is playing a teammate role. I don't think Kimi Räikkönen is. Alright,
Adam, let's take a quick look at all things MotoGP, because we're back in action this weekend at Misano with Marc Marquez going into the race with a 59-point lead at the top of the championship over his nearest challenger, Valentino Rossi. Now, it'll be, of course, the first race since the Austrian Grand Prix, because the British Grand Prix last time out at Silverstone was cancelled due to heavy rain. So, Adam, could you just bring us up to speed with what the fallout's been since then?
Well, it's just incredible, isn't it? Still hard to believe. I mean, obviously it was down to drainage. The track had been resurfaced, but fans are now being kind of refunded their ticket prices. And I saw today Silverstone are still kind of in the mix and have updated the situation with a statement. So it's obviously still not been completely solved a couple of weeks on from the shambles that it was, and the fact there was no British Grand Prix, all those fans turning out in Focus and the pouring rain, and they didn't get to see any action at all. So you just feel so sorry for them, but it'll be good this weekend to be back on track. All the talking's been about off the track incidents, and finally now this weekend with the San Marino and Rimini Coast Grand Prix, the racing will be back.
So how do you see this one unfolding, Adam? Because part of me says you've got Marquez with a very comfortable lead, so does he almost change his approach going into this one? Because you get to the stage where if he goes flat out and risks binning it, that champion's lead very quickly becomes quite slim.
Yeah, it does, you're right, and I think Marc Marquez will have been delighted that race at Silverstone was cancelled, because that's the sort of race where even if you are taking it easy, you can crash out just with the sheer amount of weather, with rain that was on the track. So that could have really been detrimental to his championship. But with just 7 races to go, I think it is now in the championship going to be very difficult for anyone to really beat Marc Marquez. For example, if Valentino Rossi wins the next 7 races, then all Marc needs kind of 5 third places and a couple of seconds, and realistically Rossi's not going to win 7 races, is he? He'll be lucky to win 1 at the moment with Yamaha's fortunes, and you can see Marc Marquez winning races, and that's the guy that's second in the championship, so a 59-point advantage. I cannot see any way that Marquez won't win the championship, and I think he'll probably win it around the Japanese round or the Australian round.
Now, we've spoke a lot about the show, about this kind of resurgence of Jorge Lorenzo. So, I mean, how do you rate his chances this weekend?
Yeah, this track, Jorge Lorenzo goes well at it. He won in 2011, 2012, 2013, 3 consecutive race victories in the Premier Class. I think for Jorge, he's the man in form, isn't he? He was second in the Czech Republic to his teammate Andrea Dovizioso, then had that stunning duel, which seems so long ago, doesn't it, at the beginning of August in that Austrian Grand Prix. I mean, the riders were moaning about how they had how they've now only had a 3-week summer break. Well, at least they've had a few weeks since racing, albeit they did have to travel to Silverstone, and the provisional calendar was released earlier on in the week, and they are back to a 4-week summer break, so be pleased about that. But no, Jorge Lorenzo, certainly the man in form. He's had 3 wins this season, going for race win number 4, and he's leaving Ducati. He'll want to leave Ducati in a high, try and get ahead of his teammate Andrea Dovizioso, send a message to Marc Marquez, who he's going to be lining up again next year with at Honda, which is just going to be incredible. I'm already excited about that lineup. Marquez versus Lorenzo on the same bike, but again, there must be a wee bit of sadness for both parties, Ducati and Lorenzo. Lorenzo's mission when he joined Ducati was to win a championship with another manufacturer. It's not happened. Now all of a sudden he's capable of winning races, and you'd probably say, had he not had the kind of bad first 4 races from Qatar up to his home race in Jerez, then he could be up there with Marc Marquez, because he didn't score many points at all. I think it was 6 points he was on after 4 races. So if he had 4 decent results, then he could be up there with Marc Marquez. But so all ifs and buts, he's not in the best he can really hope for. I think second place in the championship and fighting for race victories. But to answer the question, I think Lorenzo will be up there come Sunday afternoon.
And just finally, Adam, the one thing I've really enjoyed about watching MotoGP this season is, yes, Marquez is out there and at the front, he's dominating, but it's so interesting just watching the battle, further down the field in the championship. There's so many storylines to really keep us occupied. Yamaha still not won a race in well over a year, things like that. Danny Pedrosa coming to the end of his career in MotoGP. It's been, it's still very entertaining. Lot of storylines to watch for in the next few races, that is for sure. You mentioned Valentino Rossi, it's his home race at Misano, and it's quite incredible. It's unprecedented, isn't it? Yamaha not won a race in over a year. Does that look like changing anytime soon? Probably not, if you're being brutally honest, but you'd like to think it would. Certainly for Valentino Rossi, I think he's 38 years old now. He'll be desperate to try and get his hands in another championship, but he can't do it with the machinery he's been giving at the moment. And Danny Pedrosa, what a dreadful season it's been for him. I think 5th place, his best result. We'd love to see Danny in the podium, at least for a couple of races, and give him a good send-off as he goes into retirement, because he's been a great rider over the years, but I just can't believe how bad it has been for him this season, especially when you look at where his teammate is comfortably at the top of the championship. Now, moving on to the world of rally, and we were hoping to look ahead to the Isle of Man rally in the British Rally Championship, but the event has been cancelled. Now, the event organisers decided to cancel the race with a statement blaming delays securing a road closure order from the Isle of Man's Department of Infrastructure. Now, let's find out more from this story by speaking to rally expert David Halley. And David, how surprised were you by this announcement?
Very, to be honest. They were supposed to have everything in place by the middle of July. They didn't have it in place. There was a threat to cancel the event back then. The Dáil, the Isle of Man government, gave the organisers additional time to get their paperwork in order. And as of last weekend, they still hadn't got their paperwork in order. There's a little bit of the organisers blaming the government and the government blaming the organisers, but certainly the official press releases that have come out from the Isle of Man government have made it very clear that they gave the organisers all the chances that they were going to give them, and they didn't feel that the organisers had in place the proper arrangements to run a safe and competent rally. So at that point, the plug was pulled, as in that there was going to be no road closure orders granted, so the organisers had no choice but to announce the cancellation.
And David, it just seems bizarre, though, that, if you're racing on public roads, you would have a road closure well in advance. I just struggle to understand this one.
Exactly. The organisers are being blamed by the government for not getting themselves organised. Now, we come across this a bit in that organisers are volunteers. They're giving up their time voluntarily to organise what is a major event. So they may have time constraints in terms of their jobs or whatever. But as far as the Isle of Man government is concerned, it's a big event on the Isle of Man calendar. It has to be seen as a safe event, being part of the British Rally Championship brings it to the attention of a much wider world than just the Isle of Man itself. So they have absolutely 100% sure that the organisers are competent in doing the job and able to put on a competent event. The organisers rearranged themselves, brought new people in July to try and get that done. The government gave them more time to get it done, but with 2 weeks to go, it wasn't done. Therefore, they weren't prepared to keep going, and they didn't feel that the organisers had time to get the event properly sorted.
So, David, what sort of impact will this have on the teams and drivers? Because, you know, they would have been organising hotels and what have you, and getting the cars all prepped. This could have major ramifications, surely.
Absolutely, and while the major teams potentially will have deals that will allow them to get some money back out of it, it's not just the major teams. There's over 100 people would be taking part, 100 teams, 100 cars, 200 people plus support teams, all heading to the island, all arranging accommodation, paying for accommodation, paying for ferries. They're going to be out of pocket before they've even, and they're not getting an event, which is more than a little annoying. So I think the competitors, quite rightly, could be quite annoyed with the organisation of the rally, or lack of organisation of the rally.
So, David, what impact could this have on the championship?
Well, we lost the first round of the championship. We've now lost the third last one, seeing as the end of season is 2 separate days, 2 separate events. It's the championship's as open as it always was. It just means that there are only 2 events for everybody to try and catch Matt Edwards, not 3.
Now, David, moving on to the world rally scene, we are a few weeks away from the next event in Turkey, but Toyota have revealed that they will use their old engines for this one. So why is that?
It's a consequence of the regulations that to try and reduce the amount of spending within the championship, which is ridiculous when you're spending tens of millions of dollars, but the idea is to reduce the number of engines that are used by the teams throughout the year. So engines are paired to events, and you can't just run one engine for one event. So they are an event short of running the old engine and in the older body shell. So they have to do it sometime, so they're doing it this time round to get it out the way, if you like.
And David, of course, we do have some rally to look forward to this weekend, as we've got the final round of the Scottish Rally Championship, the Galloway Hills Rally. Could you give us a bit of a flavour as to what the drivers can expect to face there?
Well, looking at the weather forecast, it's going to be a bit inclement, I think, is where we are with it, which for the southwest of Scotland is no great surprise. The event's been known for years as the Galloping Hills, not so much the Galloway Hills. There's a bit of an end-of-season flavour to it, but there's a bite to it. We have Andrew Gallagher going for his first championship. Donnie McDonald hiding in the background, waiting to pick up the pieces. They both go in with a chance of winning the championship. They're up against Dave Bogie, who's got a new Skoda, the very latest evolution of the Skoda, former many-time Scottish champion. He'll be in there fighting for the outright win. And Jock Armstrong in the Subaru, who's won the event 9 times already, going for a 10th win. So a lot of things to look at the head of the field. The permutations from the championship situation, if Andrew Gallagher finishes ahead of Donnie McDonald, he gets the championship. If Donnie McDonald finishes in front, he needs a few people in between him and Andrew Gallagher to secure that championship. So there's a lot to play for. There's a lot of trying to keep the cars on the island up against some people who have no championship aspirations but are wanting good results. Throw in Freddie Milne in the Subaru WRC, who's just shy of a podium last time out by a matter of a small number of seconds, and he'll be absolutely desperate to hit that podium as well. Very exciting event by the looks of things.
Absolutely. And David, how do you see this one unfolding? 3 points between Gallagher and McDonald. I mean, it really could go either way.
It really could go either way. If the conditions are incredibly slippy, then the drivers are going to have to manage the risks involved in that. Andrew Gallagher does hold the pound seat at the moment. If he keeps Donnie McDonald within sight and is one or even two places behind, he still gets the championship. So he doesn't necessarily have to give it absolutely everything. But these guys and these cars, they don't like not going flat out. They can become a little bit, they can fall off the side of the road if you're not quite giving them everything that they need. So it's a very difficult balancing act to give it enough speed, but not so much that you fall off and not so little that you fall off.
David, pleasure as always. Thank you very much for your time here on Rock Sport Radio.
No problem. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Rally expert David Halley there. And now it's time for this.
Final lap on pole position on Rock Sport Radio.
Yes, it's that part of the show where Adam tells us 6 stories from the world of motorsport this week in just 60 seconds. And Adam, I believe this is you going for 5 in a row here, so let's see how you get on this time round, because your time starts now.
Former Ferrari president Luca di Montezemolo has admitted he was disgusted by fans who booed Lewis Hamilton following his victory at the Italian Grand Prix. Pat Fry has rejoined McLaren as the team looked to strengthen its technical department. Fry's last job in the sport was as engineering consultant at Manor, and he previously spent 5 seasons at Ferrari. BMW have joined Audi in saying they're unlikely to sign any of the current Mercedes drivers in the DTM. Mercedes are set to leave the series at the end of the year. The Circuit of the Americas has been added to the 2019 IndyCar calendar. The Austin track also hosts the Formula 1 US Grand Prix and is one of 2 new venues added to the calendar, along with Laguna Seca, which makes its return to the series after a 15-year absence. Next year's Zurich E-Prix has been cancelled due to a clash with other local events. Formula E bosses are hopeful, however, that a race in Switzerland can still be held, with the capital Bern the favourite. And finally, Formula E champion John-Eric Byrne will make his return to the World Endurance Championship next month. The Frenchman will race the Fuji round, teaming up with the TDS Racing LMP2 squads.
Plenty of time, Adam. There you go, 5 in a row. Did that one very well indeed. You must be
It's championship winning material, Andy, isn't it?
Fair enough, and we'll see how you get on next week, because that's all we've got time for on pole position. But we'll be back from 8 o'clock next Thursday night to do it all again. My thanks to Adam, to our guest David Halley for joining us, and stick around for Ian Martin coming up next on Rock Sport Radio.
Love music, live sport. Pole position with Andy Alston and Adam Todd on Rock Sport Radio.